Hey everyone, I'm David. So when I was younger, my brother would do this thing where he would go out of his way to get me into trouble, even if it was convincing me to lie to my dad and then telling him I lied. So I was about 10 years old and I'm pitching a baseball against the couch, because it's a logical place to pitch a baseball. And there's a glass coffee table in front of the couch. So I'm pitching it, and logically it bounced off of the couch and smashed the table. And I'm like, ah, jeez. And so I run up to my brother. I'm like, what do I do? What do I say? And he's like, calm down. Just tell Dad you were throwing a boomerang and thought it would come back. But it didn't. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. He's gonna believe that. So later that day, my dad comes up to me. He's like, hey bud, Danny told me you lied about the boomerang. You actually broke it with a baseball. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And he's like, okay, you're grounded. So then the next time, my brother was dancing in the living room. He's just going at it. And he's like, check out this move, David. And I'm like, okay. And he goes and jumps off the wall, but his leg goes through the wall. And I'm like, oh my God. He's like, don't worry, David. We'll just tell him we were playing soccer and we put the hole through the wall. I was like, I didn't do any. We're gonna tell him. And I'm like, okay, like he'll believe that. And so later that day again, my dad comes up, he's like, so I heard you lied about the soccer. I heard you were dancing, you kicked a hole in the wall. I'm like, no, I didn't. He's like, you're grounded. I'm like, all right, fine. And so finally the third time, I got a new BB gun. And my brother's like, you think that thing will shoot through the screen porch? And I'm like, probably, like it's a logical thing. And he's like, you gotta pump it up to 10 though, give it a fair shot. And I'm like, okay. So I'm pumping it and I shoot it, and right away it goes through the screen porch, but then it busts the glass sliding door behind it. So I'm walking past and I didn't even notice I did it. I was like, why does it sound like water's running? And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, oh my God. So my dad comes home and he does not even notice it. I'm like, Dad. He's like, well, I'm like, Dad, just look at the door. And he's like, what the hell happened? And my brother just runs out of nowhere. He's like, David was trying to shoot me. I was behind the glass. But the worst thing is, I can still let him do it to me now, and I'm 21 years old. So we were at my dad's place over summer, and he comes up to me. He's like, do these 5 shots. And I'm like, that's 5 different liquors. I'm going to vomit everywhere. And he's like, you're fine. And I'm like, okay, why not? So I take the 5 shots, and I vomit all over my dad's place. And he comes up to me, and he's like, all right, David, I can't even ground you. You're 21. Just a disappointment. Thank you.